Chapter 17. After finding Shangguanling. For a while, the black air vent window was pushed open from the inside, and a county man about 1.7 meters in height jumped out. He had a square face and was probably in his 20s. Just when Wei Ran wondered that this was inconsistent with the colonel, she saw the county man go up and say respectfully, "Chief, it's safe, they are human beings." Immediately afterwards, another 1.8-meter old man in his 30s jumped down from the top. A few strong men with a tough appearance, unsmiling and majestic, one can see the majesty of an absolute superior. Shangguanling looked at Mu Zikeng and his group, and quickly judged that the cold and dignified Mu Zikeng was the leader of these people. He frowned slightly and asked Mu Zikeng, "Who are you? How did you come to the top floor alive?" Mu Zikeng asked indifferently, "Then how did you come to the top floor alive?" A hint of pain appeared in Shangguanling's eyes. It was dozens of people protecting him with their lives and trying to make a way out. The little soldier was full of anger, and said in a bad tone, "Why are you talking to our colonel like this? Do you know who this is?" Zhang Nanfeng snorted and said with a sneer, "Even your county team dare not come in here. So this is how you talk to the person who can save you now." Yu Xiaojun wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Shangguanling. "Xiao Li, back off." Xiao Li then he stopped talking, and took a step back as ordered. Shangguanling thought of the loud noise just now, and asked Mu Zikeng again, "You guys made the explosion?" Mu Zikeng nodded slightly. "How many of you came in?" Shangguanling continued to ask. Mu Zikeng had a trace of impatience and a cold face. Wei Ran kindly replied, "You only saw these few, there are no others." Shangguanling paused slightly. He knows how many zombies there are in this building. Just now, when the explosion sounded, all the zombies on the 8th floor rushed downstairs and they never came up again. Then Mu Zikeng appeared. If they hadn't cleaned up the zombies, they wouldn't be standing here so calmly. But the explosion sounded only once. How did he do it with so many zombies? Seeing Shangguanling and Xiao Li covered in blood, Wei Ran frowned and asked, "You have blood on your body. Have you ever been bitten, scratched, or injured by a zombie?" "Yes, this is our brother's blood." Wei Ran and the others sighed again when they thought of the county man in the pharmacy. Be silent for a while. Mu Zikeng took off the gun he was carrying and said to Wei Ran with soft eyes, "Give them the gun and the potion. They have been here for a few days and their bodies must be weak to varying degrees, so they must have sufficient physical supplies, otherwise it would be equivalent to carrying 2 burdens to deal with the next zombies." Wei Ran obediently handed her gun to Mu Zikeng and took out 2 potions from her backpack. Mu Zikeng handed the gun and the potion to Shangguanling and said coldly, "Now there is a conscious zombie and more than 2,000 zombies outside. If you don't want to be a burden, drink the potion and restore your strength. Don't say take the potion and drink it. The outside has been surrounded by the county team. Since they can come in, they must have been let in by the county." He took the gun again and was about to hang it on his shoulder when his eyes lit up chemical laser gun. Shangguanling suddenly raised his eyes and looked sharply at Mu Zikeng. "Who the hell is he?" After Shangguanling recovered, the group went down the stairs of another building connected to the 8th floor. "Brother Chang, where is that conscious zombie hiding?" Gu Ming asked Mu Zisi while paying attention to his surroundings. It happened that Mu Zikeng passed by the window. He paused and nodded slightly toward the window. Everyone followed his line of sight to the building surrounded by sunlight in the distance, the nursing home. The zombies they met next, because Shangguanling was there, Mu Zikeng and the others did not use their abilities anymore, and directly used guns to kill them. The chemical laser gun emits a sheet of laser light, which can wipe out a dozen zombies at a time. Fortunately, there were relatively few zombies in this building. They quickly came to the grass downstairs, and after walking a while, the small villa area of the nursing home appeared in front of them. Mu Zikeng supported Wei Ran and took out the chemical laser gun from the space, and nodded with one hand at a very chic red-roofed villa in front of him. Shangguanling was puzzled by Mu Zikeng's identification of the precise location of the zombie, He approached King and asked in a low voice, "How do you know where it is?" King's dark eyes lit up, and he sneered because I specialize in catching zombies, I can smell it. First kill the high-level zombies, and then lead the rest of the zombies to the grass and kill them with grenade bullets. Ling's eyelids twitched. Shock flashed in his eyes. The howitzer is a new type of laser projectile weapon. It is similar to a rocket launcher, but it is lighter than the rocket launcher and can be disassembled. Because of the laser energy conduit, the recoil is minimal. But the power is quite huge and it can be effected within a radius of 10 miles. However, there are very few howitzers circulating in the market every year, and the black market is priceless, and even the domestic stock is only less than 50. So his application for this batch of weapons was rejected before, so it is absolutely impossible for them to be distributed by the county, and the chemical laser gun in his hand has never appeared in China. If the current severe situation hadn't happened, King would have been an extremely dangerous person through and through. Just when they were about to break into the small villa, a large wave of zombies came out from several other villas and surrounding areas. It was estimated that there were 800 zombies, and they scattered them all at once. King pulled Wei Ran, and Shang Guanling ran into the same villa with Xiao Li. Inside, they used chemical laser guns to attack the zombies who wanted to enter the door, and the zombies hit by the chemical laser guns instantly turned into a pool of blood. Brother Gu Ming and the others didn't follow. Wei Ran looked anxious. King scanned the equipment bag, his eyes turned slightly. In the hail of bullets, he slightly raised his voice and turned to the other side. Shang Guanling, will you use I-2 delayed ammunition? I-2 delayed ammunition is common in war-torn countries in the Middle East. The 3-minute delay of the instantaneous explosion is extremely harmful, and its explosion range is almost complete. Scum. But there are disadvantages. The long-range range is not wide, it can only be used for concentrated near explosion, and you must be familiar with the delay time of holding it. Shang Guanling used a chemical laser gun to kill a few zombies who were about to come in from the window, and replied loudly, "Of course." Then Shang Guanling received the equipment bag thrown by King. Up. It's full of weapon parts and grenades and all kinds of bombs. At this time, another 20 zombies entered the back door. Wei Ran was fighting off the zombies with a gun by the window, but when she saw the situation at the back door, she quickly jumped up and threw 2 grenades over there, and King hugged her and lay down under the obstacle. Boom! Boom! 2 grenade explosions in succession smashed the zombies who were squeezing in through the back door. Shang Guanling, start setting up delay bombs here now, and escape by watching the time. King intends to introduce zombies into this villa, but the premise is that people must be here, otherwise the zombies will also transfer with people, so the timing must be very precise. King, Wei Ran, Shang Guanling, and Xiao Lei each took a time-lapse bomb and placed it by the window, the pillar, the wall, and the middle of the hall. At King's order, press the 4 of them activated the delay bomb at the same time. Next, in order to let the zombies gather here, they can only defend and delay the time. Chapter 18. It turned out that the little boy, Musikan, dragged Wei Ran quickly to the second floor, and Shang Guanling followed Xiao Li up the stairs. Fortunately, the stairs are not big. They piled up all the tables and sundries at the entrance of the stairs, and then the 3 of them stood up against the sundries that the zombies had been trying to open. Xiao Li hurriedly said to Shang Guanling, "Chief, I will stay here, you go first." "I will block you here," Shang Guanling said. Sharply, "Shut up." The trick is to keep the debris at the stairway from being pushed away by zombies. Little lie, don't talk nonsense, there is a rope fixed gun in the equipment bag. Wei Ran, who was on the side, calmly found the rope from the bag and said to Xiao Li, who wanted to die. This kind of rope has a special gun head which can pierce any material and fix it tightly, and then people can escape from the rope through the pulley. After the Wei Ran team quickly finished the installation, they walked quickly to the terrace and stepped on the fence with 1 foot bent. Aim at the wall of a villa diagonally opposite and launch a rope to fix it, put the handle of the pulley, and fix the rope at this end on the terrace here. Turn your head and shout to King brother. King counted in his heart. When there are still 15 seconds left, use consciousness control to bounce all the zombies piled up at the stairway down the optimal range of the delayed bombing in the hall. Then he went over and hugged Wei Ran with one arm, grabbed the pulley with the other and said solemnly to Wei Ran, hold me tight. Wei Ran's hands were tightly wrapped around the back of his neck, and Kang grasped the handle of the pulley and jumped up, slid all the way to the opposite side and then rolled down on the grass. After landing, Kang covered Wei Ran's head with both hands and rolled around on the grass because of the momentum, and then Shi protected her under his body. Shengguan Ling and Xiao Li followed them to the ground. Almost at the same second they landed, the small villa full of zombies exploded instantly, blowing up a large group of zombies inside into meat paste. The three of Ming who got separated over there had fewer zombies chasing them, so the grassland on the other side quickly dealt with those zombies. They were rushing to find Kang when they passed a villa and heard movement. The three of them stopped, armed themselves with guns, and walked slowly into the villa. In the entire villa, Liao Jing, nothing unusual was found on the first floor. But Ming and the others still dare not take it lightly. Spare. There was a slight sound like something falling on the ground from the second floor. The three of them immediately held guns in both hands and pressed the trigger with their fingers, and slowly walked up the stairs to the second floor. After opening and inspecting each room, the three of Ming walked to the innermost and last room step by step. Chen Wei knelt down at the corner of the door and slowly unlocked the door with one hand, stretched out his fingers with the other hand and counted down, and when he counted to 3, he pushed the door open. Ming and Jiang Nanfeng immediately aimed their laser guns inside. In the dimly lit room, a thick and disgusting blood mixed with a rotten smell filled the nostrils. Then, what came into view was a bloody man lying on the ground with his chest cut open and bitten in a large pool of dark black blood that had solidified, and the internal organs were scattered all over the thick blood. Judging from the long hair soaked in blood and the small skeleton, it should be a woman. It looked like he had been dead for several days. Not everyone who is infected turns into a zombie. Those who die during the incubation period of infection will not become zombies, otherwise even if there is still a trace of dying, they will turn into corpses after the incubation period passes. Rushing the closed curtain fluttered slightly, something happened inside. There was no one else here, so Chen Wei summoned a gust of wind and opened the heavy curtains, revealing a thin boy of 7 or 8 years old standing by the wall looking at them in fear. Black pupils. Live. The zombies' pupils are gray and white, so the three of them were surprised. Jiang Nanfeng was surprised how come there are still children alive. Chen Wei looked at the female corpse on the ground in the open wardrobe beside him, and guessed this woman should be his relative, and he may have escaped by hiding in the closet before. Ming inspected it carefully for a week, looking puzzled, holding a child. There is no food or water here, and a normal child would not dare to go out, so how did he survive? Could it be that he ate corpses? Chen Wei put down his gun, waved at the child, and said warmly, "Little friend, shall I take you out?" The child shrank back into the curtain in fear. Jiang Nanfeng also squatted down and coaxed, "Go out to a safe place with my brother, and I will give you sweets then, a lot of sweets." Maybe it was because of hearing the sweets. The child revealed his eyes from the curtain after a while, and then turned to Jiang Nanfeng. He took 2 steps timidly and stretched out his blood-stained hand. Ming frowned to feel pity for the child. He saw that there were meat residues in the nails. Jiang Nanfeng took his hand, picked up the child, and said to Ming with a worried expression, "In this weather, the child only wears this, and his body is cold. Let's go find Xiao Ran." Ming and Chen Wei nodded, and immediately out of the villa. The high-ranking zombie escaped from the small villa at the beginning. King quietly activated his sensory skills and dragged Wei Ran to chase after him, because he also felt that Ming and the others were very close to the zombie. But passing through a row of villas, the two sides coincidentally met on the grass of the golf course. "Brother Cheng, I found a child." Ji Nanfeng ran towards King, shouting excitedly. But Kang stopped abruptly, and pulled Wei Ran back behind him without a trace. His brows were sharp. Ling smelled danger. Even the strong county people can't survive. How can there be children here? Wei Ran squeezed Mu Ziking's hand tightly and then pointed with her fingers. Jiang Nanfeng stopped suddenly 2 or 3 meters away from Mu Ziking. Surprise flashed in his eyes. He calmed down and said to Wei Ran as usual as Xiao Ran, "This kid is very cold and shivering all the time. Do you have any food to replenish his strength?" Wei Ran took a step forward and smiled, but there was something in his eyes. It was cold, but he said the most gentle words you put him. "Down first, it looks so pitiful. I will show this kid first if there is any wound that needs to be bandaged." Grabbing Jiang Nanfeng's collar tightly, he lay on Jiang Nanfeng's side neck, nearly a millimeter. Jiang Nanfeng raised his hand and patted the child's back lightly, and said softly to him, "Don't be afraid. You won't be afraid after we take you out. There are many interesting things outside." Ming also said in a slow tone, "Let someone from outside come to pick up the child, and soon the whole hospital will be blown up together with the zombies. It's too dangerous here." Chen Wei answered, "I'll contact you now." Then he put it in his backpack. "Dig something." Xiao Li saw that the atmosphere was not right, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. He was about to go up to help but was abruptly stopped by Ling's stern eyes. The child's clenched hands gradually loosened, and when Jiang Nanfeng gently put him down, he saw a drop of cold sweat dripping from Jiang Nanfeng's forehead. The originally innocent and lovely face turned into a ferocious one, and those black eyes that were full of pity before suddenly became sinister and terrifying. The little boy stretched out his hand suddenly, baring his teeth. He was about to pounce on Jiang Nanfeng. Chapter 19. The little boy who owns Mu Ziking turned out to be that high-class zombie. Everything happened suddenly, but Ming behind him didn't even have time to pull the trigger that he had prepared. Jiang Nanfeng is only millimeters away from high-level zombies. Suddenly, the child seemed to be grabbed by the neck and distanced himself from Jiang Nanfeng in the blink of an eye. Then it was thrown into the air, and before it fell, it was hit by a laser gun in an instant, turning into blood and spraying on the grass. The whole process is instantaneous. Everyone didn't even see when the zombie was dragged away from Jiang Nanfeng and how it was thrown out. Ling squinted slightly at Mu Ziking, who had just put down the laser gun. Although he couldn't see what was going on, his intuition told him that it must have something to do with Mu Ziking. After Mu Ziking put down the gun, he approached the sweaty Jiang Nanfeng, frowned and stared at him. "Did you get hurt by him?" Jiang Nanfeng shook his head pale. Mu Ziking patted Jiang Nanfeng on the shoulder heartily. "I didn't panic. I did a good job." Jiang Nanfeng was afraid for a while. When he ran towards Mu Ziking with the child in his arms, he suddenly realized that the child leaning against his neck was not breathing. That's why he stopped when he was 3 meters away from Mu Ziking instead of going in front of Mu Ziking. Ming and Chen Wei have followed Mu Ziking for many years and are very familiar with every bit of his emotions, so they saw the stern look in Mu Ziking's eyes and realized that they had brought back something. Fortunately, Wei Ran also saw that the child was not feeling well. When a normal child walks with the child in his arms, his legs will swing with the adult's movements. But when she saw Jiang Nanfeng running over with the child in his arms, his legs were stiff and motionless. No matter how high-ranking zombies disguise themselves, their body stiffness cannot be changed. So when Jiang Nanfeng said that sentence, she followed suit. Fortunately, Ming and Chen Wei also followed suit. This conscious little zombie uses people's empathy to get out, so he listened to the fact that this place will be destroyed, and then let down his guard. As for why his pupils were black, Ming and the others understood after a little thought. This is the hospital and the ophthalmology department. He wears colored contact lenses to cover up his gray pupils. The 3 of them were terrified. If it weren't for Mu Ziking's ability, Jiang Nanfeng would have been infected and irreparable. Mu Ziking repeatedly warned them that conscious zombies are good at disguising, but preaching is not as good as an experience. There will never be a word of compassion in the last days. It goes deep into the bone. Mu Ziking turned to Ling and said coldly, "Ling, you go out and let the county evacuate. I only give you 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I will fire grenades. Then, what will you do then? Evacuate. Shangwanling frowned. The grenade is not a joke. With the explosion, it can flatten buildings within 1 kilometer, and the shock can be felt within 5 kilometers. No one in the center of the explosion will survive. Mu Zikang tapped the corner of his mouth with his tongue, and smiled coldly. Of course I will come out alive, but the strange noises around Shangwanling interrupted. At this time, the sound of rustling and mopping the ground sounded again, and all the zombies in Huaxia Hospital were dispatched. Wei Ran slightly raised her volume and turned her eyes to warn Shangwanling. Colonel Shangwan. 10 minutes has already started. Evacuate, don't blame us for the damage after the explosion. Shangwanling understood the seriousness of the matter. The range of grenade damage was too large. If the county did not evacuate, there would be heavy casualties. He didn't know what Mu Zikang would do, but his intuition told him that Mu Zikang would definitely not die like this. Time was running out, so he resolutely turned around and ran out of the hospital, leaving only one sentence: I will look for you again. Shangwanling disappeared around the corner. Mu Zikang looked at the three of them. Gu Ming, Nanfeng, Chen Wei, you lure the zombies to the golf course, and I'll wait for you there. After the three responded, they ran in 3 different directions to lure the zombies. What about me? Brother Wei Ran joked. The corners of Mu Zikang's mouth curled up slightly, and he held her hand tightly, with tenderness in his eyes. You can only stay by my side, and you can't leave even 1 step. With the temptation of strangers, soon the crowds could not see the end. Zombies appear on the golf course. Mu Zikang, Wei Ran and Gu Ming stood on a hillside. Mu Zikang put the assembled grenades on his shoulders, hugged Wei Ran in front, pressed her strong and broad chest against her back, and put her fingers on the engine trigger. He pressed against her ear and breathed warmly. Do you know why it is called a grenade? Wei Ran raised her eyes and blinked her clear eyes, waiting for his answer. Because the light it emits at the moment is like a streamer. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of continuous explosions resounded through the sky, accompanied by a silver light. Ah, brother, it hurts here. Be gentle. Wei Ran looked at Mu Zikang pitifully with a bitter face. Mu Zikang's eyes were full of pity, but he could only ignore it cruelly, and continued to rub the bruises on her body to loosen them, but his hands were still a lot lighter. After returning home after travel and dust, I took her back to the room to take a shower, only to find that even though he had protected important parts when she landed on the grass before, bumps were inevitable, and her hands, feet, thighs were covered with large and small bruises. After finally finishing rubbing, Wei Ran was already pouting with tears in her eyes. Mu Zikang quickly hugged her and coaxed her. Those bruises won't go away if you don't rub them. It will make you hurt for several days. Ran is obedient. Don't rub the pain for several days. Wei Ran has a small temper when it comes up. It looks like a child, and it also grabs Mu Zikang's heart. Mu Zikang flexed his fingers and gently scratched her small and tall nose. Okay, listen to Ran. Wei Ran and Mu Zikang quarreled on the bed for a while, and her drowsiness gradually came up. At that time she remembered the scene in Huaxia Hospital again. Brother, when did you reach level 100? She tried hard to lift her half-drowned eyelids. Generally speaking, level 10 is a bottleneck, but level 100 is extremely difficult to break through, because people with spiritual awareness can learn any power after reaching level 100. Mu Zikang played with Wei Ran's slightly curly and soft long hair with his beautiful fingers. After eating those 2 red fruits, I directly broke through level 100. Before, Mu Zikang's level should not be too far from level 100, and those 2 red fruits helped him directly cross the bottleneck. She yawned and the corners of her eyes were wet, and she murmured, brother is the most powerful person. Mu Zikang smiled lightly, patted her on the back, and soon Wei Ran fell asleep peacefully. Breathe gently. He looked at the hazy crescent moon outside the window and recalled countless nights in the past when he was the only one alone, thinking that when his Wei Ran would be able to enter his arms, that would be the most fortunate thing. Mu Zikang lowered his head and kissed her forehead again. Little fool, you are the most powerful person, because you hold Mu Zikang's heart firmly in your hands. Chapter 20. 1 week after the thieves came. As more and more zombies completely lost their balance, the government completely collapsed. Without government dispatch, water, power, and signal cuts are inevitable. The most serious thing is the loss of the police to maintain order, and the whole society begins to be in turmoil. For example, the property in the villa community where they are located has long since run away, and now the entire area is in a state of no one to manage. As the most luxurious villa in Beijing before the end of the world, people often come in to steal, rob, and hurt others. Early this morning, Chen Wei brought out breakfast from the kitchen. Preserved egg porridge with lean meat, poached eggs, and a dish of Chinese cabbage. Don't look at the fact that Chen Wei used to be ruthless and selfless in the company, and he didn't leave a single inch of others who were killed step by step in the negotiation bureau. In fact, his favorite thing is to go into the kitchen and cook delicious food. Since he moved into the villa, he voluntarily cooks 3 meals a day, and the others are happy too. Mu Zikang carried the sleepy Wei Ran downstairs and put it behind a chair in the dining room, filled a bowl of porridge, tested the temperature, and placed it in front of Wei Ran, put the spoon in her hand, and put a spoon in her hand, and put a poached egg between her and put it on her. Put on the dish. In the past 2 days, Wei Ran's menstruation has come and the whole person is lazy and drowsy. Even brushing her teeth, washing her face, and getting dressed this morning are all done by Mu Zikang. Mu Zikang was cold and indifferent to everyone, but Wei Ran was extremely gentle and considerate to Wei Ran. It was no surprise that the 3 of them were immune during this period. The 3 people at the dining table were still fighting and bickering non-stop. Bang! Suddenly there was a knock on the door outside. Several people stopped fighting and looked towards the courtyard. Bang, bang, then there were 2 more muffled bangs accompanied by a burst of noise. Now even Wei Ran, who was not interested, couldn't help stretching his head to look at the courtyard, but Mu Zikang didn't turn his head and caught her and pressed her back to continue eating porridge. I'll go and have a look. Gu Ming got up and walked out of the courtyard to look at the towering black hollow iron gate. Mu Zikang had already replaced the iron gate with a special heavy metal material before the end of the world. Although it looked hollow and easily damaged, it was extremely difficult to crash into it even with a tank. Before Gu Ming reached the hollowed-out gate, he saw 4 or 5 men and a few girls booing outside the gate of the villa. In the middle, a thick-armed, 30 or 40-year-old man hugged a 18 or 19-year-old girl. Girl! There is an off-road vehicle in front of the entrance of the villa, and the front of the vehicle has been damaged. It seems that this vehicle hit the gate just now. In the cab of the car, a thin and mouse-eyed man poked his head out. Brother Tao, you can't hit it, the front of the car is broken. The man in the middle cursed cursingly. Damn. The girl in his arms deliberately made a soft voice. Brother Tao, this villa is so beautiful. The people inside must be very rich. Look at the car inside. There are several of our cars that can't compare to that one. Brother Tao hugged the girl tightly and then pinched hard on the chest. The girl wrinkled her face and cried out in pain, but Brother Tao enjoyed the abusive feeling and laughed indulgently. I'll let you sleep on the master bed inside later. Gu Ming inserted his hand trouser pocket, walked slowly to the hollow iron gate, and looked at them expressionlessly. Seeing that someone finally came out, Brother Tao held the girl in his arms and walked forward 2 steps arrogantly, and said to Gu Ming fiercely, you damage my car and pay me compensation otherwise. A sneer appeared on the corner of Gu Ming's mouth. Ask instead, so what if I don't drive? Gu Ming's indifferent attitude angered the gang leader. These days, taking advantage of the turmoil, he beat, smashed, looted, and burned outside, and he never missed it. It was snatched from the villa area here. Brother Tao stretched his hand out of his waist and took out a pistol, pointed it at Gu Ming and said viciously, open the door for me immediately. Gu Ming didn't move at all, and looked at his pistol with half-closed eyes in disdain. Brother Tao shook the fat on his face. He also had a few lives on his body, and he didn't care about the extra one. Besides, there was a younger brother watching him, so it was impossible to lose face. He pointed at Gu Ming's leg and wanted to pull the trigger. A male voice stopped him. Gu Ming, Brother Chang told them to come in. Chen Wei gnawed on an apple and yelled at Gu Ming. Gu Ming turned his eyes slightly and understood. Although there is no order at all now, it is still too ostentatious to do it outside, so take your time inside. The heavy hollow iron door that had just hit the ground without moving was slowly opening automatically. Brother Tao triumphantly embraced the girl, gave Gu Ming a hard look, and wandered inside with a group of little brothers. There is a high wall on the outside to block the view from the inside. After entering, I found that the area is very large. After turning a corner, I can see the whole villa clearly. This group of people was amazed by this luxurious and exquisite villa, which is the most luxurious one they have seen in the past few days in this villa area. Boss, the iron gate is so strong just now, why don't we stay here, so we don't have to be afraid of zombies, a younger brother suggested with a flattering smile. Brother Tao felt that the younger brother's suggestion was feasible, so he nodded in satisfaction. A group of people continued to walk in. Brother Tao saw a man and a woman sitting at the dining table in front of a huge French window. The man bowed his head and whispered to her, and the woman pouted unwillingly. Her skin was as white and tender as if water could be squeezed out, and her beauty was as pure as a lotus out of water. He suddenly felt that the girl in his arms was unsightly, and then pushed her away forcefully like throwing a rag. The girl fell hard on the grass, but she didn't dare to speak. Brother Tao stared at Wei Ran full of evil thoughts, took a few steps closer and pointed his gun at Jiang Nanfeng who was blocking the door, glaring, "Go away, I want to play with that little beauty." But Jiang Nanfeng leaned against the door forward, motionless. In order to show courtesy, the other younger brothers rushed forward and wanted to do something because they had guns. Jiang Nanfeng raised his leg abruptly, kicked one of them a few meters away, and beat the others to the ground 2 or 3 times. Brother Tao was so angry that he wanted to pull the trigger, but was shot in the wrist by Gu Ming behind him with a pistol equipped with a silencer. Of course, the others didn't hear the gunshots, but they suddenly heard their boss screaming in pain, moaning in pain with a pale face. The blood was continuously flowing on the grass, and the gun in his hand fell to the grass. Those girls just betrayed themselves in order to get protection and vanity. These days, they have always been domineering. They are not as embarrassed as they are today, and they are falling on the ground and screaming again and again. When those younger brothers saw the gun in Gu Ming's hand, their legs softened and they dared not move anymore. Chen Wei swallowed the last bite of apple in his mouth, and the other finger with only a gun pointed at the big puddle of blood on the grass, glaring dissatisfiedly. "Gu Ming, you don't need to hit Nanfeng's wrist artery deliberately if you are nervous. Come on, look at the grass." Jiang Nanfeng yelled back at Chen Wei, "Hey, I said Chen Wei, I'm not as good as this grass, am I?" These little followers saw that the 3 of them were almost armed with a gun, and in the cloud Danfeng said lightly to deal with the cleaning after the incident, and knelt down to beg for mercy and fear. "Don't kill us, please. It's all him, he asked us to do it, don't kill us." Gu Ming squatted down and asked with interest, "Brother Tao, do you still want to come in again?" Brother Tao lost a lot of blood and was lying on the ground with a pale face and a weak face. His eyes were full of fear. No, I won't come, I won't dare to do it again." At this time there was movement outside the hollow iron gate. Chapter 21. Sheng Guanling found it, and it sounded like a car parking. "Another thief?" Chen Wei put away his gun and went to the hollow iron gate again, just in time to see Sheng Guanling walking towards the car that hit the iron gate with his back turned to him. "Why is he here?" Chen Wei muttered. Xiao Li is now on the front of the hollowed-out iron gate, so he saw Chen Wei, who was unharmed, suddenly appear inside the hollowed-out iron gate, and suddenly opened his eyes wide in disbelief to look at Chen Wei. That day, Sheng Guanling dispatched the county team in time, and the explosion exploded as soon as he got out of the range. Even if he was 5 kilometers away, he could still feel the vibration. So when I saw Chen Wei's Zhao Li at this time, I couldn't help but feel terrified. Who is this, or a ghost? He suppressed his panic, trembling slightly, and reported to Sheng Guanling, Chief, someone is coming inside, one of those few people." Sheng Guanling paused slightly, turned his eyes slightly, gathered his coat, and turned around. He looked at Chen Wei inside the hollow iron gate. Chen Wei greeted immediately with a smile on his face. "Hi, Colonel Shangguan." Shangguan Ling took 2 steps forward steadily, standing tall and straight in front of the hollowed-out iron gate, and said without anger, "I'm looking for Mu Zikang." Chen Wei took Shangguan Ling, walked into the grass. Xiao Li has been staring at Chen Wei from behind Shangguan Ling. The heels are on the ground, the shadow is clear, and the sun is not afraid. It's people. Only then did he put his trembling heart back down. After Shangguan Ling turned the corner, he saw a man lying weakly and half covered in blood on the grass not far away, and beside him were 5 or 6 men and women who were weeping and shivering. He frowned and looked at Chen Wei. Chen Wei laughed loudly. "Didn't you just get thieves and come in with a gun? Let's defend ourselves, defend ourselves." Shangguan Ling thought of the car with the damaged front that he saw just outside the door, and this was a wealthy area, so he already had some understanding in his heart. Xiao Li said bluntly when he was young, "Why are the people next to him kneeling on one side? Even a thief can't treat him like this." Chen Wei said, "Nonsense," without blinking. "Comrade Xiao Li, you have misunderstood this. Young man, don't we have an obligation to get back to the right path?" Xiao Li nodded emphatically. "So the scene you are seeing now is that they were deeply regretful and punished themselves after hearing our earnest education." Xiao Li suddenly realized, with such an expression on his face. It's a pity that Chen Wei's high-spirited image only lasted for a while. When those men and women saw someone coming, they rolled and crawled, crying and calling for help. Gu Ming felt that there was a lot of noise, so he shot directly at the grass next to them, and it was quiet for a while. Shangguan Ling, Xiao Li, Chen Wei, Xiao Li, and Shangguan Ling passed by the man on the ground whose wrist was bleeding all the time, and he was young and honest, looking at Gu Ming. "Even if you are self-defense, you have to bandage him, so that if you continue to lose blood, people will die." Jiang Nanfeng came over and said to Xiao Li with a smile, "I've got it stuck." "Well, that's right, I can't die." Xiao Li followed Jiang Nanfeng's finger and looked at it for a long time. It was only from the bloodstains that he could see that there was a thin rope tied around the man's arm. "This is not hugging, this is basically to control the amount of bleeding. People will not die, but they still maintain a state of excessive blood loss." Xiao Li was going crazy in his heart. Who the hell are they? Chen Wei saw that Shangguan Ling couldn't play with these people anymore, so he mercifully kicked one of the kneeling ones. "Take your boss and get out of here." The boss disappeared into the villa without a trace. Shangguan Ling had just seen Mu Zikang in the dining room on the left from the French window, so he went straight into the living room to the dining room after entering the hallway. Approaching the restaurant, there was a vague conversation between men and women. "Hey, eat a few more spoonfuls, you didn't eat much last night. If you don't eat, you don't eat." Shangguan Ling thought for a moment that he had heard it wrong, and Mu Zikang, who looked at the indifference, actually spoke softly, carefully coaxing a petty woman. He also thought of the woman who was always by Mu Zikang's side that day. He continued to approach the restaurant. He was dumbfounded by the scene that followed. Mu Zikang was coaxing and feeding the woman that day with the hand that fired the gun. It wasn't just Mu Zikang who surprised him, but also that this woman with her mouth curled up and her petulant temper was completely different from what she was doing that day. Xiao Li followed behind Shangguan Ling, but he had a completely different idea. From the large French windows of the restaurant, he could clearly see the blood stains of Gu Ming and Jiang Nanfeng cleaning the grass outside with a hose. The two people knew what had just happened. Under that kind of bloody scene, you can still eat breakfast safely. And also, they can still come out of the grenade safe and sound. Xiao Li's heart that just fell down began to tremble again. Is this house full of ghosts? Wei Ranyan turned her eyes inadvertently and saw Shangguan Ling standing in front of her. Shangguan Ling? How did he find it here? But I also feel that this sentence is redundant. As long as the county is looking for it, it is impossible to find it. After Mu Zikang took out a tissue and wiped the corners of Wei Ran's mouth, he passed through Wei Ran's knees in front of everyone, carried Wei Ran to the sofa in the living room, and put it down gently, and pulled the thin wool blanket on the sofa to keep her warm. Then he sat down gracefully beside her, regained his icy aura and glanced at Shang Guanling, as if it wasn't him who exuded the utmost gentleness just now. Xiao Li still remembers the domineering scene of Wei Ran stepping on the balcony and firing a rope gun that day. Seeing Wei Ran's expression was not good at this time, he thought he was injured by the grenade, so he asked aloud, "What's wrong?" Chen Wei he offered the dog food with a kind face. "It's just that I don't want to walk." Xiao Li. He slapped himself 10,000 times in his heart. "What are you talking about?" Shang Guanling was sitting on the sofa and there was a cup of Qing Dynasty antique teacup on the tea table. The tea soup is golden and clear, and one can tell at a glance that the tea has been woken up early and is waiting for the guests. Well, the best Qingming Dragonwell tea, good tea. Shang Guanling took a sip from the teacup. Mu Zimu was wearing a dark gray sweater and black slacks. His clean hands were casually placed on his puffy knees. He leaned against the sofa lazily and with a teasing look on his lips. It's not in vain to get the colonel's appreciation. It's tea. Mu Ziking heard that the county had found his information 2 days ago and knew that Shang Guanling would come over today, so he asked Chen Wei to wake up the tea and wait for the distinguished guests to come. But now that the situation is grim, Shang Guanling came to the door for one thing. "I want to invite you into the county to fight against the zombies together." As soon as these words came out, the three of Gu Ming were standing on one side at random, or sitting and doing their own things. They also stopped their work at this time and looked towards the living room. Wei Ran, who was drowsy and lazily leaning on the sofa, suddenly looked at Mu Ziking seriously. What will happen to the county party, she knows too well. Shang Guanling took the rest of the county people and finally retreated to the county affairs base, only to find that most of the materials and weapons in the base had already been removed. And the top leader in the base had already fled, and Shang Guanling found out that he had risked his life for it, but he was treated as cannon fodder. Fortunately, the military base still has a factory that can manufacture guns and shells, and the machines are complete. Afterwards, it was extremely difficult to maintain, and it took a long time to recover. Although Shang Guanling established a base with harsh governance, clear rewards and punishments, and proper governance. But once you follow the county, it means that you have to hand over all your weapons and materials and return them to the county. All the efforts she made from the perspective of God in this life, will she still return to being restrained by others in her previous life? Chapter 22. I don't want. Wei ran to purse her lips tightly, her fingers turning white as she gripped the thin blanket, and looked coldly at Shang Guanling. She tensed her body and her slender waist was stiff. Mu Ziking was originally a king, because all kinds of past lives she had been tired of were vividly remembered. Miraculously able to come back to another life, how could he be willing to let him be restrained in this life? The more Wei Ran thought about it, the more she couldn't take it anymore. She was about to throw off the thin blanket and stand up to yell at Shang Guanling with anger. The lower back suddenly felt warm, followed by a light rub. Mu Ziking's warm hand seemed to soothe Wei Ran's gloomy mood like magic, causing him to calm down instantly. Under his comfort, Wei Ran slowly softened her body that had been stiff for a long time, and only then did she feel how sore her already uncomfortable waist was. She lazily leaned back to the corner of the sofa, rubbing Mu Ziking's comfort like a kitten. Forget it. As long as I can be by Mu Ziking's side, everything else doesn't matter. Mu Ziking and Wei Ran sat close to each other. The left hand covered by the thin blanket was gentle and delicate, but Junyi's face was stern and sneered Colonel Shang Guan. There are only 5 of us. Staring at Mu Ziking with sharp eyes, he said in an affirmative tone, I know you are capable, even better than a group. Then he threw out an irresistible olive branch and pointed to the tea table with his finger. As long as you are willing, enter the county, take a county job, you can choose. He knew from Huaxia Hospital that Mu Ziking must have the most advanced and newest weapons that are rarely circulated on the market with great damage. Also, just a few of them can kill more than 3,000 to 4,000 zombies without any injuries. Shang Guanling doesn't believe in the theory of gods and ghosts, which can only show that there must be unknown powers in them. So Shang Guanling wanted the weapon in his hand and wanted Mu Ziking to keep it even more. When they were walking, everyone silently looked at Muzikeng, whose eyes were half down and unable to see his emotions clearly. Suddenly, several deep laughs from Muzikeng cut through the silence of the living room. He lowered his head, his strong and broad shoulders trembled slightly due to the laughter, and after a few moments of silence, he finally opened his thin lips. The conditions of the Colonel Shengguan are very attractive. Muzikeng's broad and reliable back slightly moved away on the sofa. He suddenly raised his eyes coldly. I don't want to. Shengguan Ling frowned tightly. This result was expected. Muzikeng would not be a person willing to surrender, but he still wanted to try. The government has collapsed and the county team is struggling to maintain it. He originally thought that Huaxia Hospital would ease it, but he found that it only solved one of the more difficult hot potatoes. Now that the zombies broke out in an all-round way, the county team's mental strength is gradually lacking, and the number of sacrifices of the county team is increasing. Even Shengguan Ling himself doesn't know how long he will persist. Shengguan Ling, I advise you. Muzikeng's cold voice pulled him back from his thoughts. You can't change the current situation. You'd better take your people and rush to the military base as soon as possible. There are weapons you want there. If you go late, you will have nothing. Organize your own base. Build your own. Your power is the most powerful way to protect others. Zombies can appear suddenly and silently like this. How do you know there is nothing more terrifying? Shengguan Ling looked at him suddenly. What do you know? Muzikeng snorted indifferently and said quietly, I know something that the people above you know, but you don't. The U.S. spaceship. Shengguan Ling looked at him in disbelief. The U.S. spacecraft is weird, and the people on it have always said that it is just an automatic return to start. When the zombies first appeared, they did not tell the truth and could use the stability of the society as an excuse. Thinking that keeping the zombies in Huaxia Hospital could bring the matter under control, Shengguan Ling had nothing to say. But when the second Huaxia Hospital, the third Huaxia Hospital appeared, and even the main government disappeared, they still didn't get a single word. No wonder the county department couldn't get in touch these days. If true, then these guys are pushing his brother to die in exchange for time to live for themselves. No, he had to check it out. Shengguan Ling stood up abruptly and strode out of the villa with dark strides. After watching Shengguan Ling leave without saying a word, Wei Ran turned to Muzikeng. Brother, why don't you just show him the video of the spaceship? Will he believe it? Rubbing her back, glanced at the direction Shengguan Ling left, and said calmly, my words are just an introduction. His belief in the county has been rooted in his heart for a long time, and he would not believe it if he gave him a video. He only checked it himself. Is the most real thing to him. In the villa of Huaxia Hospital, when Xiao Li said that he wanted to stay, Shengguan Ling refused to leave his companion behind, which made Muzikeng feel a little more towards Shengguan Ling. Approval. It was out of this approval that he was reminded today. But what happens after that is his own business. Gu Ming looked at Muzikeng. Brother Chung, there are more and more zombies. Now that the government is gone and the county team is no longer able to do it, what should we do next? We can't kill all these zombies. Zhang Nanfeng took 2 steps towards Muzikeng. Then shall we continue to stay here? Wei Ran moved her body and leaned towards Muzikeng. Don't worry. There will be people with supernatural powers appearing one after another. Muzikeng pulled the thin quilt to cover Wei Ran tightly and said slowly, of course we alone can't kill these zombies. When most of the supernatural beings appear, organize them to reduce the number of zombies. Although the power is cut off now, the laser protection net in the villa is supported by energy bars and does not need electricity. It is relatively safe here. Although it is temporarily safe here with the attack of aliens and the establishment of various bases, people migrated to the base one after another, and the city would become an empty city. So it's not okay to stay here all the time. The hollow iron gate can resist for a while but not for a long time. Even if the laser protection net is fully open for 24 hours, it can last for decades, but people have to come out and wait for the energy bar to run out. When the alien comes and we get acquainted with it, it's time to leave, Muzikeng said, meeting the alien calmly. The 3 of Gu Ming felt a little terrified when they thought of the alien appearance in that video. It was because Mu Ziking knew that they would be afraid of this monster, so he had to wait until the alien came and let them touch until they became numb, otherwise they would not be able to go on the road ahead. The reason for turning into a zombie is because the water source is polluted by viruses. But where do people come from with supernatural powers? Wei Ran was puzzled. This was the only thing she didn't understand after her rebirth. Mu Ziking touched her little hand to test the temperature to make sure it was warm and said, "There is an energy potion laboratory in Perth country that specializes in researching this kind. Aliens broke into this laboratory after disembarking and escaped. People from Perth country, in order to protect the laboratory, they fought fiercely. But they lost to the aliens, and the laboratory was eventually destroyed. Because the laboratory was built on the sea, all the data for making energy water and the energy potion inside also flowed into the sea. This energy potion, it will cause people's genes to mutate, and they may have supernatural powers, but they may also become half-dead people. Because of the wide area of seawater, it takes time to evaporate and flow, which is why zombies appear for a period of time, but people have to be, so it takes a long time to inspire supernatural powers." Chapter 23. Mu Ziking and Guming, the three of them, felt that there was nothing they could not accept after going through this period of time. He had supernatural abilities very early on, and after passing through the zombies he was able to use skills very proficiently, and the level of supernatural abilities was about to break through the 50 levels set at that time. Don't say anything about energy potions. But something seems wrong. Then what happened to them? But why do we have supernatural powers since we were young? Chen Wei wondered. Jiang Nanfeng half lied on the sofa and crossed his legs and said casually, "Didn't Aunt Jing like to study medicine before? That laboratory is still there, maybe Aunt Jing gave us some medicine." He just said. After that, everyone looked at him. Chen Wei looked at Jiang Nanfeng because he was so fat and dared to guess Aunt Jing. Gu Ming walked to Jiang Nanfeng's side calmly, fearing that Mu Ziking would get angry. And Wei Ran looked at him thoughtfully. Under Mu Ziking's stern gaze, Jiang Nanfeng realized that he seemed to have said something wrong. He immediately stood up, with a solemn face, and hurriedly explained to Mu Ziking, "I'm not." But Mu Ziking interrupted, and then there was a smile on his mouth. Nanfeng was right this time. Half of it. Scared. Jiang Nanfeng's mind froze because of the sudden change. Wei Ran tried to analyze slowly with her herbal medicine experience. "I also think it's Aunt Jing. I remember that she was obsessed with studying the properties and components of herbal medicines for a while, and then developed them into medicines. I think some of the herbal medicines she chose have strong neurotoxins, otherwise they would not reach the central nervous system at all, to change the body, but she also added some other special herbs to balance these toxins. There are neurotoxins in the herb, so she let our body accept the fusion first, let the body adapt to the toxin, and achieve the meridians from the root. Finally, the toxin accumulated over a long period of time is mixed into the blood, not only changing the body but also changing the gene." Wei Wei, after Ran finished speaking, she looked to Mu Ziking for confirmation. Mu Ziking nodded slightly and said, "It's been a long time since I inspired the power, and I overheard her talking about it with Dad. Her original intention was to use the characteristics of some special medicinal herbs to make medicines and add them to the diet, so that our physique is different from ordinary people, so that we are less likely to be troubled by illness. Although we have never told her that we have supernatural powers due to genetic mutations, but she should have noticed it later." Mu Ziking's words made Wei Ran emerge, recalling the abnormal scene of Mu Ziking's mother many years ago. She was stunned at this moment. No wonder Aunt Jing suddenly shut down her favorite laboratory, and no one is allowed to enter. After her death, when I went in again, all the data in it had been deleted. Mu Ziking's mother didn't want this kind of lab. The genetically modified data is circulated in the world, fearing that it will be used by others to do all kinds of bad things. Chen Wei and Jiang Nanfeng opened their mouths in shock. Aunt Jing's way of adjusting her body is beyond ordinary people. Others use healthcare products, but she uses nerve poisons. Gu Ming has been dealing with military ammunition in the United States, and it is common to get blood on his hands, so although he also startled, but quickly adjusted back. But he still has some doubts in his heart. Then why doesn't Xiao Ran have supernatural powers? Wei Ran thought for a moment and said, not all of them will have supernatural powers, but no matter whether they have supernatural powers or not, because the neurotoxins left in the body are originally intended to adjust the physique, so the body will definitely change. For example, the speed will be faster than ordinary people, and it will hardly be invaded by ordinary viruses. Wei Ran thought of her two spaces that existed in no concept of time. Later, she gradually figured it out. That wasn't a supernatural power at all. It was a different space built by herself. There is still poison in the body. Gu Ming and the three heard that the toxin was still in the body, and they all opened their eyes slightly and asked Wei Ran at the same time. Wei Ran couldn't help covering her mouth and laughing when she saw that they were usually ruthless and rarely looked as shocked as they are today. This toxin is already a part of your body. It won't harm you. Instead, it will help you recover faster when you are injured, and it will even keep mosquitoes away. Only then did the three remember that it was true in the past. In particular, Gu Ming has a deep understanding. When he first arrived in the United States, he often got injured when he clashed with other gangs. He was attacked and stabbed from behind. The wound was extremely deep, but the surface healed in just a few days and healed completely in less than 10 days. Although he was surprised at the time, he was busy building an arms trade line when he first came to the United States, so he couldn't help but think about it. He just thought that he was in better health. Now it seems that it is indeed because of the toxin. The three of them were completely relieved now. Almost another month has passed. People with supernatural powers appeared one after another, and slowly more and more these people gathered and organized a supernatural team to encircle and suppress zombies. Because the government had warned the infected tap water and cut off the water source before the disintegration of the government, so there are more and more supernatural beings in the absence of infected heads, and the number of zombies in the country is under control. But the city was still paralyzed and cars were parked all over the street. Except for a few teams of patrolling supernatural beings passing by in a hurry, there were few people on the street. And the ability team formed by the ability people is growing day by day, so it is announced that because of the need to ensure the resistance against zombies, all the materials outside will be uniformly distributed by the ability team. In addition, in order to attract more people with supernatural abilities, the supernatural team announced to the outside world that people with supernatural abilities would join the supernatural team as soon as possible, and the material treatment would be favorable. But because the needs of the supernatural beings must be met first, there are very few supplies available to ordinary people. Mu Zikang and the others didn't give the supernatural team a wink at all, and they still went out to collect supplies every day before the alien came. He also specially carried them to shopping malls, supermarkets, and factories of all sizes to store production equipment. Although they are not short of supplies, who would dislike having a lot of property? In order to deceive others, today they still drove around in a 7-seater commercial vehicle. Finally stopped in front of a large supermarket. The sight inside was dim, the goods on the shelves were messy, and the ground was scattered all over the place. It could be seen how hurried the people who came to get the supplies were. Although many people have been here, but after all, there are limited manpower. Even if you take a big bag, you can't hold much. In addition, a large number of zombies appeared later. People dare not come out. So there are still most of the goods on the first floor of the supermarket. Ignoring the scattered goods on the first floor, they went directly to the second floor to find several warehouses, picked the lock and opened one of which was full of rice and oil, that is, food and other food items. Then Gu Ming went to pry open other warehouses, which were full of daily necessities such as clothes and bedding. Wei Ran immediately put all the materials in the warehouse into the space. But Wei Ran didn't plan to take the supplies on the shelves on the first and second floors, and had to keep some to avoid suspicion. When they returned to the first floor of the supermarket, a group of people suddenly rushed in and surrounded them, and one of them immediately ran up to the second floor. The leader was a fat and short woman in her 20s, with a bad tone. "You are not a supernatural team, you can't enter places with supplies, don't you know that?" Chapter 24. If anyone wanted to fight for this position. musicking, and the others simply ignored her. The woman felt neglected and suddenly became angry from embarrassment. She took a step forward, but before she could speak, she saw the man who rushed up to the second floor anxiously and rushed down again. Team leader, it's not good, it's not good. All the warehouses on the second floor have been pried away, and there are no supplies left. Now the ability team has gradually increased in number, so they are divided into groups at the bottom. Group. The supplies here are where the team explored last night, because it was too dangerous without lights at night, so they came here now, but the supplies were gone like this. The team leader looked at Muzikang and the others viciously. Did you take it? No effort or contribution. People who are not members of the supernatural team can't take supplies privately, and if they take them, they will be dealt with according to team rules. Wei Ran hugged Muzikang with a soft white hand spread out in front of her. He asked with a smile. I said, "Do you see anything in our hands? How can we hold our empty hands?" Of course the group leader saw that they bag. I don't have anything in my hand, and that bag can't hold a lot of things. But she was still relentless, and pointed at Wei Ran. Open your bags and show me. Any supplies must be confiscated. Wei Ran looked at her with a harmless smile. Why, who are you? Already an angry group leader, he will be stimulated by Wei Ran's fair, translucent, delicate and smooth skin, and she even wears clean, nice and warm clothes. You don't need to ask to know that she has been taken care of very well, even in the last days. But because I worry about zombies day and night, I don't have a fixed place to live. Not to mention skincare products, I don't know if I can eat or not, but this little bitch can be surrounded by several men. Then her jealousy was ignited, and she decided to blurt out acrimonious and swear words. You dirty little bitch. Just because of your good looks? You mess around with a few men in exchange for comfort? No. Before the group leader finished speaking, he immediately put on a shrill scream from near to far. Before the people in the team could see what happened, they realized that their squad leader should have been standing in the middle, but now he blinked and disappeared. Ah hey, it hurts. At this time, the group leader's weak cry came out again. This time I heard it, and it came from outside. The people in the team hurriedly searched for the sound and swayed out of the gate of the supermarket. After searching for a while, they found her under a car in the middle of the road. Team leader. What's wrong with you? The team members pulled her out and helped her up. The woman clutched her chest as if she couldn't breathe. Another female team member checked her wound and said in surprise, Team leader, you have broken 3 ribs. The team leader held the painful spot, trembling with fear, limp body, weak and breathless, and said stubbornly, they are zombies. High high dash level zombies. The ability team has been besieging zombies for a while, and they also encountered a high-level zombie and suffered heavy losses. The people in the group were suddenly frightened, as if they felt an extreme cold rushing from their backs to the back of their necks. Their whole bodies were stiff and fixed as they watched the 5 people slowly walking out of the dark supermarket. Mu Zicheng, who gradually became clear from the dark, was cold and cold. He held Wei Ran in his arms, and although his bony hands gently rubbed and comforted her slender shoulders, his face was gloomy and terrifying. As if suddenly covered by a haze and covered with a layer of ice cold, the dark eyes slowly turned to look at the woman. The eyes were cold. The cold air pierced the bone, and the corners of his mouth were tightly pursed to reveal his anger. No one had ever dared to say anything against Wei Ran in front of Mu Zikeng. The 3 of Gu Ming immediately looked at the woman viciously. Especially Jiang Yanfeng and Chen Wei. They watched Wei Ran grow up. Although she had a bad relationship with Mu Zikeng at one time, she has always been in harmony with them. To them, Wei Ran is their sister. One of the team members came back to his senses and shouted, retreat and retreat, go back to the team and pass the pass. There are 5 high-level zombies here. All the team members were shouted back to their senses, and hurriedly carried the team leader to escape. Jiang Nanfeng snorted when he saw the direction in which they fled and disappeared. If it was really a high-level zombie, you would still be alive and running away, and you would have died long ago. Chen Wei then joked, not necessarily, someone still hugged. The high-level zombies are running around, and they are still unscathed. Jiang Nanfeng was furious, and he was about to kick Chen Wei immediately. Mom, get out of here, I'm so young and inexperienced. Chen Wei said, hiding aside. He laughed and scolded, you're still shameless. You're already 26, and you're still young. The others were also amused by Zhang Nanfeng's words and gradually burst out laughing unscrupulously in this chaotic street, where zombies appeared at any time. Beijing prison. Since the outbreak of zombies, many prisoners in the prison have also turned into zombies. Later, the government collapsed and the criminals took the opportunity to escape. Only the zombies were left inside, and later, when there were more supernatural beings, people were organized to surround and wipe out the zombies here. Later, I felt that there were towering walls around the prison, and the area was large enough. In addition, the limbs of the zombies were stiff. As long as the door was guarded, the zombies would not be able to enter. So supernatural beings and ordinary people have chosen to be here. The Cheng family is here. Cheng Shuxian was the first group of people to inspire supernatural powers, and because he often rushed to the front because of the siege of zombies, he gained more experience points and his level was higher than other supernatural beings. After other supernatural beings appeared one after another, Chang Ziyang, Cheng Shuxian's father, immediately formed a supernatural team in order to lead the supernatural beings, and the supernatural captain directly announced that it was Cheng Shuxian. Because Cheng Shuxian is the highest level, other supernatural beings dare not speak even if they have ideas. What's more, the Cheng family still has a batch of weapons in their hands. What? 5 high-level zombies. Cheng Shuxian raised his voice in disbelief. They encountered a high-level zombie in a factory before, and killed several supernatural beings, but they were eventually run away by it. One was already so tough, now 5. The person who complained continued, yes, according to the feedback from Lai Lai, the leader of the 6th team, there are 4 men and 1 woman. They can't see the action and make a move. Team leader Lai has already broken 3 ribs. Confuse. According to this information, it should be impossible for zombies to have such a sensitive speed. If there were such high-level zombies, they would have attacked long ago. After all, there are the most people here. Cheng Shuxian asked the complainant to go out first, then went inside and told Cheng Ziyang about the situation. Cheng Ziyang listened to it for a long time, and said with an ugly face, this speed doesn't look like a zombie, but rather a person with supernatural powers. Dad Cheng Shuxian looked anxiously at his father. If his rank is higher than mine, then our Cheng family will. Cheng Ziyang lifted his half-drooped eyelids, and he patted Cheng Shuxian's shoulder. Coldly he hummed, don't worry, don't forget that we still have weapons. As long as we have weapons in hand, the supernatural beings will support us. With his father's words, Cheng Shuxian felt relieved. He has been in power for a long time and has power in his hands. He has already enjoyed the life of being supported by others and is never willing to give up. If anyone wants to fight for this position. Cheng Shuxian's eyes show murderous intent.